with the recording and process, I will simply say, it is my privilege and my pleasure to say, Happy Transgender Week, beautiful people. Good morning. I am Reverend Vicki Jeter, your minister for Louisville Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Chapter. And I welcome you here on this really special Sunday, November 17th, 2024. We and Mr. Turkey welcome all paths to God. We welcome your challenges and your questions, all pieces and paths of spirit, all areas of life, and all parts of ourselves are essential to a world that actually works for all. Whether you're here with us for the first time, which we actually do have people here for the first time this morning, welcome, welcome. And if you are watching us on YouTube, we thank you for being with us because you are why we are here. Go ahead. And so Vern and I are working on our rhythm a little bit this morning. The very first thing that I want to acknowledge as we put into the room for prayer time is that this is Transgender Awareness Week, and there is a lot that goes into that and a lot why it's significant for that culture as a part of our society and our communities. And I just want to say for individuals and families that we do honor your journeys. And if there is anyone here or listening to this that could benefit from more information and understanding about why it's important, then I really encourage you to contact me because I have some information and some resources that could be helpful. And of course, today's message picks up on our theme of abundance for the month of November. Today, we're going to more deeply stretch to understand how abundance is multiplied in our lives and how it is naturally multiplying all the time all around us. We'll be looking at how abundance multiplies in nature with intention and how thanksgiving and gratitude increase natural flows of abundance, and how our human tendencies to do othering, like separate ourselves from others, then undermines that flow of abundance and what we can choose to do about that. So as we move forward now, taking all of this into opening prayer by invitation, we begin by setting our intentions. Take a moment to check in and see what brought you to be with us today. Take that pausing breath and really create some space for that. Our shared intention today is to open our hearts and minds, investigating how abundance multiplies effortlessly throughout life and how we can learn to multiply what we choose in the way that we choose, working in co-creation with this power that is so much greater than ourselves and yet all that we are. And with that, we simply stop and recognize one life, one love, one law, infinitely emerging as all that is by any name. And as I recognize it as the all that is all, we open our minds, hearts, and souls to that invitation that that flow can move in as and through us individually and collectively happens naturally, serving absolutely the highest and best vision of spirit through each and every one of us, this very unique combination on this very unique and sacred day. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Presence of Life, for all of our abundance and what we're learning to do working with it. And with the heart of a child, I release it, I let it be, and so it is. This brings us to our opening song, Helping Each Other Through by Bruno Mars. And oh, this isn't the one by Bruno Mars. Hold on. This is a rather unique day, you guys. Okay, once again, it is Helping Each Other Through by Karen Drucker and the Posy Artists, which is a name that our collective most popular New Thought musicians have come up with together, and you'll see what I mean.
All we can do is be there for each other in these times when we don't know what to do. All we can do is be there for each other and help each other through. All we can do is be there for each other in these times when we don't know what to do. All we can do is be there for each other and help each other through. Twist and turns, unexpected, day by day moving on. I don't have all the answers, come what may, right or wrong. All we can do is be there for each other in these times when we don't know what to do. All we can do is be there for each other and help each other through. Crashing waves touch the shore. Time moves faster every day. Ebb and flow, no control. All that's left to say, all we can do is be there for each other in these times when we don't know what to do. All we can do is be there for each other and help each other through, and help each other through.
I absolutely love that song when I heard it, and I listened to several versions, and there's some other new music coming today, and in the process of deciding what went where, that's part of what caused that confusion this morning. So I appreciate your patience. And of course, our song sings us into our mission and vision. The mission of Louisville Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Chapter is to teach personal transformation as a virtual community, living the principles of science of mind and celebrating all paths to God, which manifests our vision of a world that honors and respects all people. Now, we absolutely know that all of this is only as good as it will actually apply. So each week, we have an application of what we believe. And this week, our application of what we believe is the power that Jesus manifested was divine. It was not the will of an individual, but his willingness to believe that gave him power. It was not a concentration of spiritual forces that Jesus exercised, but rather a childlike and implicit faith in the reality of the Spirit in human affairs. And that is out of Ernest Holmes' book, The Philosophy of Jesus, which actually, out of all the researching and studying and understanding about Ernest Holmes that is available in through and as what I've learned, I never knew there was an actual book just on the philosophy of Jesus. So that was a new one on me. And I will let you know if I find the source of that where we can get it, because I didn't know that there was one. And now I turn this over to our practitioner of the week, Miss Tammy Evans, for our sacred reading and meditation.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be the practitioner of the week. In the reading from Science and Mind magazine, the enabling energies written about this month are aspects of universal flow. We are naturally able to use these energies because we are one with them. Abundance, like freedom, health, and joy, is within us and expresses through us according to our subconscious beliefs. We give direction to these energies, which have a range of potential as to how they express. If you think of abundance as water flowing through a hose and consciousness as the hose nozzle, you naturally understand how the nozzle is set will determine the flow of the water. How is your consciousness set for abundance now? Is it a trickle or a healthy flow of good? How is it set regarding your health, your finances, your relationship, your work? Is there enough to spare and share? If not, maybe you need to open the nozzle. We affirm what we desire as though it were already so. We allow greater good to express in our lives. When we see limited circumstances as our reality and identify with limitation, we restrict the flow. Our subconscious mind listens to what we tell it and how we feel about it. It is important to see and feel abundance in every area of your life as you do your spiritual practices. As we take this into meditation, just relax in your chair, get comfortable. Close your eyes if that works for you. And allow my words to become yours. As we go into our meditation, think of a situation where you're feeling a sense of lack and limitation. Know that with God, all things are possible. Let go and let God. God is my abundant source and supply. I release thoughts of lack and limitations of my humanness. I shift into a space where spirit and I are one. I trust and know that I have access to the infinite abundance of spirit. I'm reminded to look at life with wonder, curiosity, and joy. I give thanks to Spirit in advance for all the miracles in my life. I dance with joy and happiness, expecting the miracle of love to perform its act of kindness. I have childlike faith. I give blessings in advance. My prayers are answered. My supply is multiplied, and I dance with joy and thanksgiving. I know abundance is within me and is now expressed in my life. I have enough of everything because I know that I am enough. I deserve abundance, and the universe cooperates with me. Let us all do a grand rising into our infinite potential. And know that the impossible is now I'm possible. We let go and let God. Namaste.
Namaste. Such an incredibly beautiful meditation and reading. Thank you, Tammy. So I just invite us all to take a breath, maybe stretch your arms out and imagine expanding your capacitance to receive what's next. Oh my goodness. So I'm introducing our topic today. Our special music will support the topic, which is abundance multiplied and multiplying. And in prefacing this, first, I want to suggest to you all that there are quite a few balls in the air around this idea of how abundance multiplies and is multiplying. And just know that it's like a carousel where all the different characters on the carousel have their time, and they come up and they go down, and they come up and they go down, so that as the concepts come forth this morning, that there's a place for all of them, and they're all dancing together. And so the special music is going to inspire your cognitive mind. We're going to do a little multiplication, a little creative way of doing this. And then we'll go to what's next. Go ahead. So we are aware that there was a different reaction for every person that's in this room to that special music. I just want to honor that that is the kind of pace and the way that our young people are learning now. And so it's just a way to honor different vibrations, different paces, you know, and ultimately, I hope you had a little fun with it, even if it caught you off guard. One of the things that's important about that with regard to the multiplicity piece is really that's more like what our subconscious works like. You know, our brains are going that fast and faster all the time. And when you can find something that captures your interest, it will help you to be able to remember it that much easier. Plus, the other thing that's very valuable about that kind of a process is that it engages every sensory perception we have. And when we can engage multiple sensory perceptions at a time, it wires up the network in the brain to be able to work with it all together and strengthen it all together. And so thank you for walking through that with us. Now, on the other end of the spectrum of what we do in consciousness, the next thing that I want to do is have you shift your attention into your imagination. So I'm going to tell you the story of the fishes and the loaves from the Bible. Fishes and Loaves was originally the title of this talk as it came out of home office, and I did a little creative adjusting. However, this particular paradigm for understanding how we multiply and are multiplying is an excellent understanding out of the Bible for how this works. And if there was ever a demonstration offered by the Christ of how to do this, the fishes and the loaves is among my favorite. It's found in the Bible in Matthew chapter 14 and John chapter 6. So just close your eyes with me just briefly, and I want you to imagine that you are among the multitude. It was said to have been 5,000, which we know symbolically those particular types of terms within the Bible was just to be said. It was throngs and throngs of people, and there's really no way they could have known exactly how many it was. And there was actually a little boy involved, and he is the one that had the fishes and the loaves. And one of the disciples found the little boy and said, you know, this is all we have. And the Christ said to the disciples, you feed the multitude. And they said, but Master, Master, we have not enough. And he and the little boy, it is said in some of the versions of this story in the Bible, because the child came with childlike faith, that Christ took the bread and the loaves and he broke up the bread into various baskets, which he then handed to his disciples. And he then centered himself in that, knowing that it would be multiplied, and they fed the 5,000. And as you're sitting and imagining this, I want you to see if you can bring yourself to that simplicity. Never mind not understanding how it works. Just imagine that you are in communion so pervasively enough to know that divine spirit could move through your desires at that level. and everything that is good in your life could be multiplied for the entire scope of where your consciousness reaches. Now, take a breath, come on back. We're going to pull in some things that come from some previous talks, and it'll be coming back around. And I have a fresh paradigm that I'm going to be using to give as examples for how this natural multiplying and multiplicity works. Last week, we talked about the understanding that abundance is a reciprocal principle. What we take in comes back out, and what we put out comes back to us. And this week, we're going to take that and look at the natural multiplicity of abundance in the creative process through sacred geometry as an example. Sacred geometry shows up everywhere in nature. Along the way, we're going to be talking about what can prohibit that natural multiplicity and the empowerment of taking personal responsibility for where we show up in consciousness. Because very much like, I love that example that was given of the hose and the nozzle. You know, like the hose is the limitless flow, and then we have, you know, that nozzle is like our little dial that we, and wherever we land that dial, that's like our prism. You know, we run the light through the prism and it shows up uniquely in however the way that we're using it. And we are personally responsible for that. We are personally responsible for where we show up in consciousness. And the more we are aware of that, the more personal responsibility we have because of what we understand in our connection with spirit. And why it's important to recognize how whether we're feeling secure or whether we're feeling vulnerable can cause us to see ourselves and our relationships differently with all of this in play. So one of the things, especially right now, is to take into your consideration and your prayers and your processes, like, how am I feeling right now about what I'm taking in or what I'm talking about? Am I coming from vulnerability, or am I coming from the security of knowing that I'm one with my source regardless of appearances in the outside? So sacred geometry is the belief that certain geometric shapes and proportions hold mystical or spiritual significance, often associated with the idea that a divine creator designed the universe using these patterns, which can be found throughout nature and are reflected in ancient religious structures and art. And of course, all of that carries through to today. They're just saying, and this actually is not me talking, this is a quote, but I could not find who the actual person that wrote this was. The key concepts, though, just ideas of where this shows up everywhere, is in the golden ratio, which most of you probably heard of, hold on, I just lost the term. The Fibonacci sequence. And we're going to see a little bit more about that too. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Now, all of these are just examples. And right now, we're going to talk about one that is called the flower of life. So Vernon, if you could put up a slide, please. Give me just a second here. This image depicts, and I'm talking about the very first one at the top, and underneath it, you might be able to see it says the flower of life. It's the one that has 8 circles together with 7 circles with 1 in the center. This image depicts what you look like when you were about 48 hours beyond conception. That's just 2 days. Within 2 days, that original sperm and egg come together, and when they begin to multiply, that's the form that it originally takes. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. This image on the bottom row, so if you look down to the very bottom one on that very first row, that is what you look like after 5 or 6 days, and that's it. It doesn't have it labeled as that, but that's what is called the blastocyst looks like. And it has between 2 and 300 cells. So just within the first 5 days of life, we go from being 2 individual cells that have come together that create the beginning of what we're going to become, and it multiplies to 300 cells within 5 days. And so the palette of potentials within those cells is the uniqueness, but the structure that is necessary is absolutely precise. So that's like love and law. By law, it's absolutely necessary that how that happens in the right way to develop those cells and how they multiply like that. It is absolutely precise for every life form that comes into being. Is something very much like this at the beginning. And then the palette of potentials within those cells and what they're going to do is our uniqueness that emerges. And all of that is working together all the time. And so you see the pattern of effortlessness multiplying for everything that you need and want in life is within you from the very beginning. There is a way that this works, and it carries through everything if we can bring ourselves to be aligned and surrender to allowing it to work through us. And anything can be repeated in creation, made more than once, and it can then be multiplied. So, as you see in the diagram, there are a number of varying geometric patterns here found throughout creation. It is most significant to realize that this is not theoretical. This is literally, you guys, everywhere you look around you, you're going to find that there are these kinds of things. This is like the mathematical side of what we talk about the law of God. Mathematically, these kinds of things and that preciseness is everywhere. And once you know what you're looking for, you can find that perfection of how the law is working through creation all around you. So Vernon, go to the next slide, please. Now, this is a sort of geometrical depiction of a dandelion. And I have the writing that's there. I'm going to go ahead and read for y'all. I don't know if y'all can see it clearly. In the heart of a white dandelion lies an ingenious blueprint, whispered in silent geometry, spun with intent, a sphere of symmetry, radiant, intricate, and pure, as if each filament were laced by a measured, unseen hand. Each seed a delicate orb cradled in radial embrace, perfectly spaced in rhythm, a dance of grace. They cling like thoughts to their center, aligned precise, until the wind calls and scatters them. Yet, even in chaos, they abide. Even in chaos, they abide. A masterpiece woven in nature's finest threads, its beauty a proof as if the universe knew. And of course, we know the universe does know. So, take a breath, see where that lands within you. And I want to invite, go ahead, Vernon, go to the next slide. So here is an actual, more perfect demonstration of the dandelion. And I took and I put the sunflower back there next to it just to show this is everywhere. And we looked at the sunflower a few weeks ago too when we were talking about the Fibonacci sequence. Every single sunflower, it's the seeds in the sunflower that demonstrate the Fibonacci sequence. And that's one of those things like the golden mean that is everywhere in nature. So your the things that we want to look at today, the influences that result in this effortlessness for what we desire. And in taking a look at what that takes, it's like, say, how do we do that? So in this process, we're going to be touching on a number of the points that were highlighted in some previous Sundays. And they are your level of clarity, your level of interest, and then also the atmosphere that you're cultivating on a regular basis with your thoughts, feelings, and actions, creating that atmosphere around you and in your relationships. And that's the concept that we learned called Ma. So all of those things work together. Of course, the clarity and the interest, that comes right out of mental equivalence that we talked about last week. And so I invite you to pick an area of your life that you would like to see multiplied abundance, just to keep in the back of your mind as you're taking all this in. Beginning with the idea of clarity, ask yourself, how clear have I been about what I want? Why do I want it? And if you discover as you're looking at this that you're not as clear as you could be, this is an excellent opportunity to engage prayer support with friends or family, or this is what our practitioners are for. If you go into a practitioner session, getting this kind of clarity is exactly what that's about. So then the next thing is the question of your level of interest in having what you say you desire. It is equally important, and it can be very surprising to investigate this deeply. I have found the surprise to be that often, at first at least, before people realize what is really going to mean to have something and experience in their life, there's a tendency to want to skip over what it takes for that desire to become a reality. Such as, just it's popping in my brain right now, a lot of people will say, oh my goodness, I want so much to have children, I want to have a baby. And then when they really start looking into exactly what's going to happen to have that baby, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it through pregnancy and birth, right? That's what's called becoming. And we have to be open and willing to the process of becoming in human terms in order to have many of the things that we say we really want to experience in our lives. This actually happened to me when I was just a practitioner for the center, which I don't mean to be minimizing that at all. I'm talking about the simplicity of structure here, not the importance of what we do. I love being a practitioner, and I was a practitioner for 32 years. But from that starting point, then one day, Reverend Rick McCollum got with me and said, I think you can become a spiritual director, and I think that we can just kind of move this forward. And I was like, oh boy. And I was thinking, how long will it take till I can tell people I'm a spiritual director? And I had myself like, I catapulted my consciousness. I was like, can I tell them next week? And he tamped me down right away. He said, oh honey, let me explain. You don't quite understand what it's going to take to do this. And so that's just to say, that's a perfect example of how we sometimes dream that we can just say it and it happens, but there is a process. So the third most significant element is the atmosphere you cultivate in the space around things. And this is especially relevant right now with respect to all the mixed up feelings and thoughts and emotions and intentions and desires and oh my goodness, and trying to bring it all together. And we're all activated right now throughout the world in, a plethora of different ways. So exercising the practice of a trained mind, intentionally deciding how we choose to think and feel, what we choose to put our focus and our intention on, rather than reacting automatically, subconsciously, without pausing to think. It's especially important now to remember to take those pauses, catch our thoughts and feelings, and choose. Now, I'm not saying, especially due to the increased challenges that we're all having to try to embrace, that staying in the current moment is the only thing we do. The thing is that when there's something that we can see coming that we need to plan for, absolutely planning is very important. But once we've done that plan, once we've taken a look at what can I do, what is mine to do in order to be prepared for the future, or learn from the past, if we're reflecting on the past, all of that, that's one of those horses on the carousel. It's all very important. But once we've done that, it's about coming back into the current moment. And if you find it happens that it's difficult for you to shift your attention and intention in this way, this Thanksgiving time of year can be most helpful, because you've likely all heard, often hear, that if the only prayer we ever prayed was thank you, it would be enough. That's actually a true story. If that was the one spirituality that someone could walk, and they said for everything, every day, thank you, it would be enough, because the universe would respond to that holistically. This is literally true. One most basic tenet of spiritual growth and involvement is that we are aiming to become truly grateful for everything, unconditionally, whether we perceive it in human terms to be good or bad as an experience or a development in human terms. To start with the idea, it is of spirit, it emerged of spirit, thank you, God. Putting this into practice in each living moment possible is part of what's going to carry us through to the highest and best in the easiest possible way, in that natural flow. So, pardon me. The human tendency to project the worst possible scenarios is one way that we shut down that receptivity and our extraordinary good. We have to be willing to discontinue what I call courting things that are, spicy. We see something on the news or something happen. Oh, did you see this or did you see that? We have to be willing to let that go in deference to really cultivating the atmospheres that we prefer. It is absolutely not possible to be in both growth and protection at the same time. So when we engage in something defensively or in fear, our systems are not in the mode of receptivity and growth. Now, they can switch quite readily. So I'm not suggesting to you that you can't have a moment of fear, or, you have to be authentic in what's going on. But as soon as you can, catch it and make that shift. So one of the things I've noticed in conversations I've had and listening to people in the past few weeks is the tendency for perceptions and thoughts and feelings to go into what I call all black and all white thinking, which is to say, we're going along, and we're, say, in a group of like-minded people and all is well, and then all of a sudden, somebody within that group pops up and says something that is directly opposed to what we thought they'd say or what we thought they were and all that kind of stuff. And we put the brakes on and we say, oh, but I don't agree with that, so maybe I can't be a part of this group anymore. And I know recently one person said to me, well, I've been doing this particular thing with this particular teacher. It was a mode of working out. And they said, well, I just don't think I can do that anymore because I didn't know this person thought that way. And so it's about how to stop and realize that we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We have to find a way to continue to come together and work out through the dynamic tension of our differences rather than being pulled apart. And very often that tendency to all black or all white thinking, where we're going along and then something switches and we think, oh, now it's all bad and now I have to get away from it, comes from when we were small children and we really needed stability that we didn't have to shift and shuck and jive in. And so if you find yourself in that tendency to cover something all good or all bad without that flexibility, just check in and see if you don't need support from a smaller part of yourself. And so in closing today, I have two stories to share that demonstrate the principle of abundance multiplying. And the first comes from an experience during the time when Vernon and I were dating, and some of you may have heard this story before. And previously when I've told it, it's been about how something that is an immediate demonstration can demonstrate multiple times, which is part of what we're talking about now. But in particular, when I tell it this time, I'm talking about the level of clarity and the level of interest that we had in this. It was when we were just first dating, and we had not yet announced to the world that we knew together that we were a couple, and we were trying to figure out how to get comfortable doing that. And a very dear friend of ours decided to have a 4th of July party. And when we thought about going to that party, Vernon comes up with this idea, let's take homemade ice cream. So we were very excited about getting together to celebrate 4th of July. So there was a lot of interest, a lot of energy, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. And Vernon says, I have an ice cream maker. This is going to be fun. We'll go and we'll get some rock ice, and we'll get all the ingredients, and come on over. It was the first time I'd ever actually been over to his house, so that was a really leading edge experience. And we get in there, and I mean, we're starting this at 10 o'clock at night, and the party's the next day. So I am all about it. And the recipe that we had was one of those where you have to cook it. You have to like boil the milk and everything. And so I'm in there, and I'm in his kitchen and finding pots and pans. And he goes out and he's telling me he's going to get his ice cream maker. And all of a sudden, I hear the voice of a distraught little boy inside of him. And he says, oh no. And I look at him, and I'm like, what is the problem? And he's standing there with ice cream maker parts in his hand. And I'm like, okay, so we can put it together. And he's like, you don't understand. It's 2 different ice cream makers. We're never going to be able to get this to work. And I mean, the mixture was already boiling. The sugar was already in there. I mean, it was a done deal. And he says to me, what are we going to do now? And I said, honey, we're going to shake it. And this is our level of investment. We were not going to be stopped. We poured this boiling mixture into this canister that's supposed to go around, you know, with like the churner and the ice cream maker thing and the ice. And we had the ice and all that there, and the rock salt. It was all there. And so we did this dance of shaking this thing for a churner rather than being able to churn it. And God, there was this little hole at the top. And so he would shake it, and then I would shake it. And as we were shaking the little hole, this ice cream sauce was coming out all over us. We both ended up with ice cream sauce all over us. And we stood there over his sink and the ice and did that for like 2 hours. So by the time we got done, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And he says, do you suppose anybody's going to be able to eat this? And I said, absolutely. We're going to put this in the freezer, and it's going to be great. And so we did. We manifest this ice cream, and it actually had decent flavor, but it was like large curd cottage cheese. It had these huge clumps of a mixture in it, in the middle of all this other, you know, saucy flavor kind of thing. And what ultimately happened, as you might imagine out of that, is when we got married, we were given like 4 ice cream makers. And when it happened, I really took it in as a way that once you have that alignment and you have your mind, your heart, and your soul invested, it's going to demonstrate. And when you really got it in, it's going to demonstrate more than once. And so for just a moment, dropping back to the story of the fishes and the loaves, this is what I want you to know. We do not have to make this happen. It's about believing what's possible, as the Christ did. The Christ absolutely knew that he was plugged in to his source. And this isn't about it being the Christ either. For those who have a relationship to Buddha or Mother Mary or any one of the other, you know, ascended teachers that have walked this earth, it's about the purity with which they live their faith. So you clarify your faith, you become invested in your faith, you believe your connection to your understanding of spirit, and then spirit drops in and becomes a vessel to create something so much more than you might have even imagined possible, because the essence that this comes from is all around us. And I have literally taken to cultivating that space within myself and sweeping the quantum field toward me and directing it, just directing it like doing a patty cake. When I'm thinking financially, I do this patty cake thing, and I tell the essence to form into actual dollars and cents, you know. And so do this in your own way. And then I just wanted to do a very quick reminder, in addition to these kinds of skills, do remember to take good care of yourself, to manage your stressors. Remember to get good sleep, eat food that actually fuels your body before you have the ice cream. And keep practicing with your attention and intention. And if you have any questions about this, please do bring it to Sharing Time or call myself or a practitioner, because we are here to support this actual manifest process. And with that, we take this into prayer. Practicing as we practice and knowing what we know, first we take the pausing breath to consciously shift from where we have been to where we are now, in this opportunity for affirmative prayer. And having come into the opportunity, first and foremost, thank you, thank you, thank you, Divine Presence of Life, for this opportunity and so much more. We should have such problems. Thank you, God, for the gift of autonomy. Thank you, God, for the gift of community. And recognizing the one right here and right now, one love, one law, one infinite life that is forever giving, and for our opportunity to learn to cultivate that well of receptivity and receive, and thusly being available to give again. For all of this and more, and for knowing that this meets each and every person within the sound of my voice where they are showing up in spirit, I'm grateful. And I release it, I let it be, and so it is.
And now is the time for the giving of our gifts. As always, we appreciate all the ways you give to Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. You will find all the different ways to give in the chat, along with our snail mail address at LCSL, PO Box 43958, Louisville, Kentucky 40253. Now please join me in affirming today's affirmation. The heart that gives gathers.
Vernon's like telling me, basket, basket, and I'm not hearing you. Sometimes I get so into where we're at that I forget my next part, which is simply to once again sweep that quantum field in that comes directly from the divine, sweep it into this little basket that is the basket that multiplies the fishes and those loaves, knowing that with our intention and with our love, it blesses our entire world. And so I let it be, and so it is.
So now it's the time for our announcements. The men's group via this Zoom link is this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And next week's speaker is Reverend Karen Hartville. So, this is our Thanksgiving Sundays, all manner of decorations, attire, and expressions of giving thanks are encouraged. And her talk will be about Rise Up and Dance. And December 3rd is Giving Tuesday. And you're invited to take part of the generosity movement, transforming communities and the world. And please join us for sharing time after the benediction. And please remember, don't ever forget that you are magnificent.
To our benediction. Infinite presence, I give thanks for divine spirit in us all, affirming that we each find our unique way to give and receive, serve and love. I know that the divine takes pleasure in our inspired living, our intuitive actions, and in the sound of our voices uplifted in joy. Thank you, God,